Joined by Chris Roebuck, who's a visiting professor of transformational leadership at the Cass Business School in London. Thanks very much for joining us. Let's start with the report. I mean, there's been pressure on the FSA to release this report into the failure of RBS, but the FSA is holding firm. Why is it doing that? What's its argument?
You have to be very, very careful when you're talking about these sorts of reports, because it depends why the report was commissioned and what the objective is. If it's a technical report like this one is, that looks at certain specific technical aspects, then really it isn't the sort of thing that is actually going to contribute to the public debate. Whereas if you look at, for example, the report that was produced in Switzerland by UBS for its shareholders and the Swiss Banking Commission, that was designed to be a report that would be useful for people to understand what went wrong and would therefore add value. So I think we need to look at it in that context.
What about the idea of clawing back money from bosses in failed banks? I mean, how enforceable would that be, do you think?
Well, certainly there's a principle of clawback that exists in any number of industries, and indeed financial services, where if people do a deal for the organisation and they are paid commission for that, if that then goes wrong, then there is a clawback over a period of time. The question is, how practical is it to expand that to a general movement in the bank's performance rather than a specific deal? Now, let's be fair though, all of these senior leaders expect to have bonuses when things go well, and to be equitable about it, they've got to expect to have some form of clawback when things don't go well.
Why doesn't that happen already then in the banking system?
I don't just think it's about banking, I think it's about the corporate world in general, because if we look at some of the corporate leaders, there are a fair number of them who have got away with really big bonuses when things have gone well, but when things haven't gone well, there hasn't really been any effective clawback. And that's not just about what the government does, that's really about the responsibility of remuneration committees and corporate governance and the people who set the objectives for senior leaders in our businesses.
I mean, the point the government is trying to make here, or the FSA is trying to make, is they're trying to stop excessive risk-taking. Is that plausible? Is that possible to do? I mean, don't banks just take risks anyway?
Banks have to take risks to be able to function. The key question is the degree to which you want to have regulators telling the banks what they should be doing day to day, and the degree to which the behaviour of the senior leaders is controlled by remuneration. You really have to make a decision in terms of, are we going to go for effectively regulation making people behave well? Are we going to go for the market making people behave well? Because the banking crisis has proved that actually the market itself produces some pretty outrageous behaviour, but then again pure regulation is likely to restrict the performance of the organisation. So it's a difficult balancing act.
It's a very fine balance. Chris Roebuck, thank you very much indeed for coming on today.